Every single day, more than 2 billion people around the world reheat their leftovers. 2 billion. That's a number so large it's almost hard to picture. And nearly all of us share the same quiet assumption when we press start on the microwave or set the pan back on the stove. We assume that if food gets hot enough, it must be safe. And honestly, for the most part, that's true. Reheating is normal, convenient, and it saves both food and money. But there are a few specific foods where how you store them, and how you reheat them, matters more than most people realize. And the strange part is, almost no one has ever been told which ones, or why. Let me start with a number worth keeping in mind. Roughly 1 in 6 cancer cases worldwide is linked, at least in part, to diet and lifestyle factors. That comes from data summarized in major clinical cancer journals. Now, I want to be careful and honest here, because diet is just one piece of a very large and complicated puzzle. Genetics matter. Age matters. Environment matters. Plenty of things are simply outside our control. But diet happens to be one of the pieces we actually can influence, every single day, through the choices we make in our own kitchens. And that's exactly why it's worth understanding. What almost nobody hears about is the quiet chemistry that happens to certain foods when they're stored and then reheated a second time. These reactions are invisible. You can't see them happening. You can't smell them. They usually don't even change the taste. For most foods, none of this matters at all. But for a small handful of foods, it's genuinely worth knowing about, because a tiny change in how you handle them can make a real difference over the long run. Welcome to the channel. Here, my whole goal is to take real food science and turn it into clear, simple, practical steps that you can actually use in everyday life. Not confusing jargon. Not fear. Just honest information. Today, I want to walk you through 4 foods that almost all of us reheat without thinking twice. Foods that are very likely sitting in your fridge right now. And for each one, I'll explain, in plain language, what really happens when they're stored and reheated, and then the simple habit that keeps them safe and healthy. Stay with me all the way to the end, because the 4th food is one that most health-conscious people are absolutely convinced is completely foolproof. It's the one where a tiny change in habit makes the biggest difference of all. Let me be clear from the start about what this video is, and what it is not. This is not about scaring you away from good, wholesome food. Rice, chicken, spinach, and eggs are all genuinely excellent for you. I eat all 4 of them regularly, and so should you. This is simply about the difference between eating these foods well and eating them carelessly. The changes we're going to talk about happen slowly, quietly, over time. And the very good news is that avoiding them is incredibly easy. We're talking about small habits that cost you nothing and take almost no effort, but pay off in a real way. Small habits, real payoff. Now, before we get to the 4 specific foods, I want to give you a short, plain English foundation in food chemistry. Please don't skip this part. I know, food chemistry sounds a little dry, but I promise to keep it simple, and this is genuinely the key that makes everything else make sense. Once you understand these few basic ideas, every food we discuss will click into place. When you cook food for the very first time, heat does predictable, manageable, mostly good things. Proteins firm up and become easier to digest. Starches soften. Fats melt and blend together. This is completely normal, and it's why cooked food is often safer and tastier than raw. So far, so good. But here's where it gets interesting. When you reheat food that has already been cooked once, and then has sat in the fridge for hours or even days, a slightly different set of reactions can begin. And there are 3 in particular I want you to understand. The first is oxidation. This is a big one, so let me keep it simple. Fats and proteins that have been exposed to the air during storage become chemically unstable. Think of it a bit like a cut apple slowly turning brown on the counter. When you then apply heat again to those already changed molecules, some of them break down even further. In everyday terms, the food goes slightly rancid at the molecular level, long before you'd ever taste or smell it, and reheating can speed that process up. The key takeaway is this: oxidized fats are simply less healthy for your body than fresh, unoxidized fats. Remember that word, oxidation. The second reaction happens when the browning process in cooking gets pushed too far. You know that lovely golden brown color and rich, savory flavor on roasted chicken or a piece of toast? That comes from a natural reaction between proteins and sugars under heat. In moderation, it's wonderful and harmless. But when those same proteins and sugars get blasted with high heat over and over, they can produce compounds that promote inflammation in the body. And chronic, long-term, low-grade inflammation is one of those background conditions that just isn't good for us over many years. So that's the second one: too much high heat, too many times, drives inflammation. The third reaction involves nitrates. A few specific foods are naturally very high in nitrates. During refrigeration, natural bacteria on the food can slowly convert some of those nitrates into a related compound called nitrites. And when you then reheat nitrite-rich food, it can encourage the formation of certain compounds that food safety agencies around the world have flagged as worth limiting. Don't worry about memorizing the chemistry. Just remember: nitrates, storage, and reheating. So keep 3 simple words in the back of your mind as we go: oxidation, inflammation, and storage. You'll see at least one of them show up in every food we discuss. Ready? Let's get into the first one. Food number 1 is cooked rice. Rice is the most widely eaten staple food on the entire planet. More than 3 billion people rely on it as a main source of their daily calories, in nearly every culture on Earth. And of course, reheating leftover rice is one of the most universal, deeply ingrained kitchen habits there is. We've all done it. Cook a big pot, save the extra, warm it up tomorrow. Simple. But there's a real issue with leftover rice, and here's the part that genuinely surprises most people. The problem has very little to do with the reheating itself, and almost everything to do with what happens to the rice while it's sitting in the fridge, or worse, out on the counter cooling down. Here's the science, made simple. Uncooked rice naturally carries the spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. This is not some rare, exotic contaminant. It's completely normal, it's on rice everywhere, and, crucially, it survives the first round of cooking. Those spores are tough. Now, if that cooked rice is then left sitting at room temperature for too long, those spores wake up and start to multiply, producing a toxin as they go. And here is the real catch: that toxin is heat resistant. So when you reheat the rice the next day, the heat might kill the bacteria itself, but it does not destroy the toxin they already left behind. That toxin sails right through the microwave, right through the stovetop, and into your digestive system completely intact. That toxin is exactly what causes those miserable, sudden bouts of food poisoning that people so often wrongly blame on bad takeout. There's a second, smaller point too. Repeatedly heating starchy foods at very high temperatures can increase a compound called acrylamide, which forms when the natural sugars in food react with certain amino acids under intense heat. International health agencies consider it a compound worth minimizing where we reasonably can, and that's one more good reason not to blast the same rice over and over. So what should you do instead? It's genuinely easy. Whenever you can, cook rice fresh and enjoy it right away. But if you do need to store it, the golden rule is: don't leave it sitting out to cool slowly. Instead, spread it on a wide, shallow tray or plate right after cooking so it cools quickly. Get it into the fridge within about an hour. Then eat it within a day, and never reheat the same batch of rice more than once. Do those simple things, and rice stays exactly what it should be: a healthy, affordable, everyday staple that's good for you. Food number 2 is cooked chicken. Now, this one catches a lot of people off guard, and here's why. Chicken is the world's favorite lean protein. Doctors recommend it. Dietitians recommend it. Athletes and health-conscious families build their meals around it. It's affordable, versatile, and genuinely good for you. And of course, leftover chicken almost always ends up back in the fridge, and then back in the microwave. Here's the thing worth understanding. When animal muscle protein, like chicken, is exposed to very high heat a second time, especially when it gets overcooked, dried out, or charred, it can increase the formation of compounds called heterocyclic amines. These compounds are among the most heavily studied substances in the entire diet and health field. And the general guidance around them is very sensible and very mainstream: try not to repeatedly cook meat to blackened, burnt, well-done extremes. Research has associated diets very high in heavily charred, overcooked meats with a higher risk of certain cancers over time. And I want to be clear about what that means and what it doesn't mean. It does not mean you should stop eating chicken. Not at all. It simply means it's smart to avoid scorching and repeatedly overcooking it. That's it. And honestly, the fix here is not just easy, it's delicious. Leftover chicken is fantastic eaten cold. Think chicken salads, wraps, sandwiches, grain bowls, cold chicken on top of a big green salad. It's a genuinely great meal. But if you do want it warm, the trick is simple: reheat it gently, at a moderate temperature, rather than blasting it on high. And don't cook it into oblivion a second time. That way, you keep all of that wonderful, high-quality protein, and you skip the downside completely. Now, foods 3 and 4 are the ones most people genuinely get wrong. And they're the most surprising of the whole list. Food number 3 especially catches out the people who pride themselves on eating a really clean, healthy diet. And food number 4 is something that health experts actively recommend you eat more of, yet almost nobody ever talks about the reheating side of it. So stay with me. If you're finding this useful so far, take just a second to subscribe. I publish one brand new video every week, and they all follow this same approach. Real, solid science, translated into simple, practical steps you can actually use. No hype, no scare tactics, no supplements to sell, and no hidden agenda. Just honest, useful information for you and your family. Alright, let's get into food number 3. Food number 3 is spinach, and other nitrate-rich leafy greens. Spinach might just be the single most celebrated vegetable in all of healthy eating, and for very good reason. It's absolutely loaded with iron, folate, magnesium, and powerful antioxidants. Health experts across the board consistently tell you to eat more of it. And they are completely right, when it's eaten fresh, or cooked once and enjoyed right away. So please, keep eating your spinach. This is not a reason to stop. But here's where the wrinkle appears. It shows up specifically when cooked spinach is stored and then reheated later. Spinach, along with a few relatives like beets, celery, lettuce, and Swiss chard, is one of the richest natural sources of nitrates in the whole food supply. Now, in your body, nitrates are not villains at all. In fact, in their natural form, they actually help support healthy blood flow and healthy blood pressure. That's a good thing. But here's the catch. Once cooked spinach sits in the fridge, the natural bacteria living on the surface of the leaves gradually begin converting some of those beneficial nitrates into nitrites. And then, when you reheat those nitrite-rich greens, it can encourage the formation of certain compounds that food safety authorities have very specifically cautioned about. The European Food Safety Authority, for example, has issued formal guidance on how we handle and reheat nitrate-rich vegetables. This is not something I'm inventing for this video. It's established, published safety guidance. And honestly, the irony of it is a little painful. One of the healthiest, most nutrient-dense foods on the entire planet can become less good for you, simply because of a storage and reheat habit that millions of well-meaning, health-conscious people carry out every single week without a second thought. So what should you do instead? The answer is refreshingly simple. Enjoy your leafy greens fresh whenever you possibly can, and eat them soon after cooking. If you have leftovers, the best move is to eat them cold within a few hours, rather than reheating them a day or two later. And genuinely, cold spinach is delicious. It's wonderful on a salad, tucked into a wrap, or stirred into a cold grain bowl. If you absolutely must store cooked greens, keep them in an airtight container, use them within a few hours, and eat them cold instead of reheating them. Food number 4 is eggs. I told you the fourth one would surprise you, and here it is. Eggs. Now, eggs are about as nutritionally complete as any single food gets. They contain all 9 essential amino acids, which is remarkable for one food. They're an excellent source of choline, which supports your brain and memory. They give you selenium, an important mineral for your body's antioxidant defenses. And they contain lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 antioxidants that specifically help protect your eyes as you age. By almost every measure you can think of, eggs are one of the healthiest, most affordable foods you can put on your plate. So what's the issue? The one thing worth understanding is what happens with fat and reheating. Egg yolks contain both fat and cholesterol. When an egg is cooked the first time, those fats go through a mild, completely normal amount of oxidation. No problem there. But when a cooked egg is refrigerated, and then later blasted with high heat all over again, especially in the microwave, those already oxidized fats can oxidize even further, and faster. The byproducts of that process, including certain oxidized cholesterol compounds, are ones researchers pay close attention to, because in laboratory studies they behave in ways that are simply less friendly to our cells than fresh, unoxidized fats. And I want to be crystal clear here, this is a reason to treat eggs gently, not a reason to fear them or stop eating them. There's also a smaller, related point. Repeatedly overheating cooked egg protein, particularly in a hard, high-power microwave reheat, can make that protein a bit harder to digest, and can degrade some of the sulfur-containing amino acids naturally found in eggs. None of this is dramatic or alarming on its own. But all of it points in the exact same direction, toward one simple, easy habit. So what should you do instead? Eat your eggs fresh whenever you can, because honestly, they taste far better that way anyway. Nobody actually enjoys a rubbery, twice microwaved egg. If you like to make hard-boiled eggs ahead of time for the week, that's great, just keep them in their shells and eat them cold. They make a perfect, portable grab-and-go snack. And try to skip the aggressive microwave reheat on scrambled eggs and omelets. If you really do need to warm up an egg dish, do it gently and at low heat, using mild, indirect warmth rather than blasting it on high. Now, let me be honest with you for a moment about why I actually made this video. When I first started digging into the research on how food changes with storage and reheating, my very first reaction genuinely wasn't fear. It was frustration. And here's why. Because this information isn't hidden away in some secret vault. It's published, right out in the open, in food safety guidance from major health agencies all around the world. And yet, somehow, it almost never reaches ordinary people in a way that's clear, simple, and actually usable in daily life. Just think for a moment about how many everyday reheating decisions are happening right now, all over the world. There are children eating reheated leftovers in their school lunches, 5 days a week. There are older adults, living alone, warming up the exact same meal night after night, simply because it's easy and cooking for one is a hassle. There are dedicated fitness enthusiasts doing careful weekly meal prep, absolutely convinced they're optimizing every bite, with no idea at all that a few of their staple foods just need to be handled slightly differently. And here's the important part, not a single one of these people is doing anything wrong. They're not careless. They're not foolish. They simply were never told. That's the only difference. Now, you have been told. And that, right there, is the entire purpose of this channel, to close the gap between what food science already knows, and what regular, everyday people actually get to hear. So, let's pull everything together now. 4 foods, 4 simple lessons, and one clear conclusion. How you handle your food genuinely matters, and the fixes are wonderfully easy. Food number 1, rice. Remember, the real concern here is bacterial, not the microwave itself. So cool your rice quickly on a shallow tray, get it in the fridge within an hour, eat it within a day, and reheat it only once. Food number 2, chicken. Enjoy it cold in salads and wraps, or reheat it gently and moderately. Just never scorch it, char it, or overcook it a second time. Food number 3, spinach and leafy greens. Eat them fresh, or eat them cold. Avoid reheating stored greens altogether. If you keep cooked greens, keep them only a few hours, and eat them cold. Food number 4, eggs. Eat them fresh when you can, store any hard-boiled ones in the shell and eat them cold, and if you ever do warm up an egg dish, keep it gentle and low. And beyond those 4, here are a few universal habits that will protect almost every single meal in your kitchen. First, cook the right portions in the first place, so you generate fewer leftovers to begin with. That, honestly, is the single most effective change you can make. Second, reheat any food only once, and then let the rest go. Third, reheat gently, at lower temperatures, rather than blasting everything on high. Fourth, when you can, use a low oven instead of a microwave for protein-rich foods, since microwaves tend to create uneven, localized hot spots. And finally, when in doubt, throw it out. A simple food thermometer is a small, cheap investment that takes all the guesswork out of safe reheating. And notice, please, that none of this requires special equipment, expensive supplements, or some dramatic overhaul of your entire lifestyle. Just small, informed choices, the kind that quickly become automatic once you know them. Before I go, I genuinely want to hear from you. So let me ask you directly. Which of these 4 foods surprised you the most? Was it the rice, the food almost everyone reheats without a second thought? Was it the chicken, the protein that so many careful, healthy eaters treat as the absolute gold standard? Was it the spinach, the vegetable that every health expert is telling you to eat more of? Or was it the eggs, the surprise at the end? Let me know down in the comments below. And if there's a specific food you eat all the time and would like me to look into in a future video, drop that in the comments too. I read every single comment, and your questions genuinely shape the videos I make next. And one last small thing before we finish. Take a moment and think of just one person in your life who reheats their leftovers on autopilot, without a second thought. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe a brother or sister. Maybe a college student living entirely on meal-prepped chicken and rice. Maybe a partner who reheats spinach all week, or someone who microwaves a big batch of scrambled eggs every single morning. They don't yet know what you now know. And you could change that for them in less than 10 seconds, simply by sharing this video. Not to frighten them. Not to lecture them. Just to give them the very same simple, practical knowledge that you now have, so they too can make their own informed choices about their health. Because they deserve that chance just as much as you do. And now, one final, important note before I let you go. Everything presented in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not, in any way, personal medical advice, a diagnosis, or a treatment recommendation. Food science keeps evolving, and specific recommendations can change as new, high-quality evidence becomes available. So I strongly encourage you to speak with your own doctor, a registered dietitian, or another qualified healthcare professional before making any significant changes to your diet, and especially if you already have an existing medical condition. The mission of this channel has always been to take complex research and turn it into clear, practical, honest, evidence-based information. Never to replace your doctor, and never to create unnecessary fear. Just to make sure that good, reliable information actually reaches you, because you deserve nothing less. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the very next one.